Hey, Footclan, what happens when the best athletes in the world lose? Well, The Secret to Victory is a new podcast from Gatorade and Gimlet Creative about how the best athletes in the world use defeat to fuel a win. The episodes feature Serena Williams, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Matt Ryan, J.J. Watt, Karl Anthony Towns, Kyle Schwarber, and the people who know them best. Visit Gatorade.com/podcast to listen now or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, this is Allen Robinson from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the Redraft Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Hello, everybody.
Saturday!
Wherever you are,
It's all right for fighting.
welcome into the show.
My good friend Elton taught me that.
Mike is very excited. This is his first Saturday episode of the season.
I've never been so excited for a fantasy football show as I am right now.
Wow.
Did you know this is episode 397 in our history?
400's right around the corner. Next Saturday. Will you be even more excited?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It always goes up.
that's true.
Aboard.
Welcome in. We have a great show today. We're going to talk about some of these Ezekiel Elliott rumors in the quick question. We're going to get into the mailbag, and we have some best ball bonanza on the podcast today. Andy, Mike, and Jason, as always, with Brooks manning the helm. You can find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers, and I recommend you follow us over on Twitter. We're always releasing new articles. There are 3 great ones that hit the website this week, and one of those is about A.J. Green, one of my favorite players for the 2017 season. So check that out, thefantasyfootballers.com. All right, guys. This morning, various rumors about Ezekiel Elliott. Jason and I discussed this on the
Wasn't this last Saturday?
July 4th episode, actually.
Oh, okay.
And there was talk from Adam Schefter that Ezekiel Elliott may be bracing for a suspension, that he would be hesitant to draft him in fantasy drafts right now, not knowing the situation. And then a different report this morning alluded to the fact that, okay, maybe he is, there's a lot of smoke here is what I'm saying. And so today's quick question is this. How many games does he have to be suspended for you to adjust him in your rankings from where you have him right now? Because my personal prediction is actually that Ezekiel Elliott will be suspended, and I think it'll be a 1-game suspension. So I'm asking myself that question. Okay, missing him for 1 game, how much does that really matter? And I think if it's a 1-game suspension, I'm actually not adjusting him whatsoever. I'm going to keep him as the number 3 pick behind David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell. Zeke stays there, the value of running backs. But where's that line for you? And maybe we can equip fantasy owners right now with how they should think about a 1, 2, 3-game suspension, maybe 4-game suspension for Ezekiel Elliott. What do you think?
I'll say 2 games, I would not move him at all. 3 games, I will drop him past the top 3 wide receivers. 4 games, then I have to do just a complete evaluation of what's going to happen. 4 or more. This whole situation is extremely murky because, allegedly what they're looking into was the domestic violence incident from college. And the NFL correctly has instituted a zero-tolerance policy for domestic violence or domestic abuse. And is it 6 games? I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but there is an automatic penalty that you get if you get in trouble for this. So that's where it becomes really murky. If that's what they're investigating, but now Adam Schefter's saying it might be a brief suspension, it might be 1 or 2. Can that really hold up? Will the NFLPA allow that to even happen? Because they're going to challenge the suspension. He will file an appeal. And then when does the suspension actually happen? Will he just take it for the first game, the first 2 games? Will he fight it, push it off to the middle of the season? I don't know when we will actually have any clarity, even going up to the beginning of the season, on this whole situation.
You're saying that even if a ruling comes out tomorrow that it's been 1 game or 2 games,
right,
you're not sure whether that will stick for this season. I think
exactly.
I think that's a fair point. For me right now, Not knowing, I would rather have Antonio Brown and what I do know over Ezekiel Elliott. But I'm pretty much in line with you guys. If it comes out officially that it's one game, I'll probably put him back ahead. He is a difference maker. We know when Le'Veon Bell was suspended for a few games, there was an overreaction. But if you look at fantasy leagues that drafted him, they were fine. By the end of the year, they were in the playoffs, and they were doing great because it's that big of a difference maker at the position.
All right, I think that's helpful. We'll stay tuned. I mean, this is something that we could get clarity as early as next week, or we could be waiting another 2-3 weeks, a month.
I don't think
heading
he's going to
into
get
training
suspension.
camp. First training camp starts on the 19th of July.
Wow.
And so that is the very first one, and you pretty much have camp starting the 19th through the following week. So we will be right in the thick of it, and we'll have news. Unfortunately, we always have news in the sense of, players get banged up, they get hurt, they pull a hammy, they pull this or that. We've had some big injuries in years past, Kelvin Benjamin, Jordy Nelson, that happened during training camp. Hopefully we don't see those.
Kelvin was training camp, Jordy was preseason.
There you go. So we'll keep you informed. That's what we do. And we'll be switching to 5 days a week starting in August. All right, before we get into the mailbag and our best ball bonanza.
Foot Clan assemble!
Well, I wanted, yes, we'll talk about footclanvote.com. I'm going to lead into it, though.
Okay.
Because we got this DM on Twitter I just have to share.
Yes.
Because this says everything you need to know about the Foot Clan. So we had someone on Twitter.
It's at Geeky Sportsman. He gets a full shout-out.
There you go. He says he's driving with his 75-year-old mother for 10 hours this past weekend to a family reunion. And all they listened to the entire time was this podcast. And now he said his 75-year-old mother is seriously contemplating starting fantasy football for the very first
This
time.
is incredible.
Yes.
Amazing. So for those of you out there saying, well, how do I get my friends in? How do I get my spouse into it?
Cross-country drive with us on.
If a 75-year-old mom can listen to the show and at least piques the interest, the antennas go up, or I should say antennae go up, you have the answer.
It always makes
Strap them in and listen to the show.
Right, against their will, and eventually,
Yes, very much.
over 10 hours, they'll come around. We've actually seen this before from a lot of stories with a husband and wife, where the husband has earned the right to listen to whatever he wants for a part of the trip, and he'll play the episodes, and then all of a sudden, the wife's singing David Johnson.
I'm just visualizing now as Clockwork Orange, the guy when he has his eyes strapped open and they're putting the drops in.
Yes, this is one of our new kind of viral spreading techniques as we strap them in. But I thought that was a cool story. So, Foot Clan out there, to transition now, we want to invite you over to footclanvote.com. If you like the show, we got to record you doing that so I can push that button anytime I want.
All right.
If you want to nominate us for the People's Choice Award in the Best Sports and Recreation Podcast, you can head over to footclanvote.com and do that. Voting or nominating is going through the end of July. So, all right, let's go ahead and let's jump right into the mailbag.
Mailbag.
Yes, let's do it. Saturday mailbag. All right, Joey in Minneapolis says, in a PPR league, do I keep David Johnson for a first or Melvin Gordon for a 6th round pick?
Ooh,
What would you guys do?
Stud. Value versus stud. It's David Johnson for me, hands down. It was on the Footcast a couple days ago. We were talking about in the first round, which is the one player who you are skeptical of and you think kind of has that highest bust probability of the first round, because we know historically
there's going to be some.
Yes, it will happen. There will be busts in the first round, and mine is Melvin Gordon. With that statement, I'm not saying Melvin Gordon's going to bust. Just the way I'm playing,
Gives you the heebie-jeebies.
I probably will not be having Melvin Gordon on any of my teams because I feel like he has a higher probability of the first round guys to bust. So I'm locking it in. David Johnson, top pick. I don't care if it takes my first.
What about you, Jay?
I'm going to be realistic. If I was this person, I would try to determine where my first, because it's a first that you're giving up. You should be able to know where you're picking in the first, unless they do that at the draft, and who might be available in the first, because that's what you have to weigh against this.
Melvin Gordon plus that player.
Right. If you're the
would
101,
you rather have that than David Johnson?
If you're the
I'm going to go Melvin because I'm not as uncertain about him, so
Yeah.
I will go Melvin for a 6.
And I think you're going to be fine either way, but do that practice first to see if you're gonna end up with Antonio Brown and Melvin Gordon. I would rather have that than a David Johnson and whoever you're replacing in the 6th round.
All right, if you do want to send in a question to the mailbag, you can do so on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. You can dial our voicemail hotline, 302-464-TFFB. Have a couple voicemail questions we're going to get into this morning. Let's start right now.
Hey, this is Jesse from Florida. I had a question is, if everyone in your league subscribed to the late round quarterback theory, at what round would you bite the bullet and say, okay, it's the 5th round, 6th round, I have to take Aaron Rodgers. Somebody has to do it. All right, just want to know what you guys think. Bye.
It's a great question, and I just wrote an article on the late round quarterback theory, and there were 3 caveats I put in there. I broke down 3 reasons why the late round quarterbacks, why that's a good decision for you in your draft, and 3 caveats that I put in there. One of them was, there comes a point where the value overwhelms the philosophy. Yes, I want to get a quarterback, but the goal is to get the best quarterback possible as late as possible. For me, with Aaron Rodgers, if I'm getting Aaron Rodgers in the 4th round, I'm just going to take him. He's the one kind of stronger exception to the rule as well, because if you look back over the last 8 years, you have him basically alternating 2 and 1 finishes for the last 8 years. So Rodgers in the 4th, yeah, if everybody in your league is passing on him, 4th, 5th round, I'm all over him.
Right. I would say that's my exact same answer. And the reason why is not just because of Aaron Rodgers, but because of who you are replacing that with in the 4th round. In the 4th round, you're deciding between a Keenan Allen or Devontae Adams. And it's like, okay, well, let's say you push that back one more round. What wide receivers are you going to replace those with? Get Michael Crabtree instead of Devontae Adams. Michael Crabtree might be better than Devontae Adams. You're not missing much. So that's what I would say. Aaron Rodgers in the 4th. Outside of that, then I'm going the next tier to me, the Tom Brady's, Andrew Luck.
The Tom Brady's.
Well,
There's a few of them this year.
The Tom Brady's being Tom Brady, Andrew Luck, and Drew Brees. Those guys I wouldn't really want until probably the 6th or 7th to be that value, and they probably won't be there.
Yeah, in a league like that, those guys are obviously getting pushed back as well.
Right.
So you still have an opportunity to snag a higher tier guy at a different value.
I'll say in the 4th, my lip will start twitching.
Sure.
The 5th, I'll probably get a little sweaty thinking about it, and where I might have to do it. 6th is an automatic. I will take him, but it's probably that sweaty range because I don't like to be sweaty.
Yeah,
sure.
Nobody likes
Who
to
likes
be sweaty.
to be sweaty?
He'll take care of that for you. All right, let's move.
It immediately shuts off.
Yeah,
after
Brock. Seems like you get sweaty the most with Aaron Rodgers or Rob Gronkowski dropping.
This is an accurate statement.
Yeah.
They make me perspire.
Brock in Louisville.
Wow.
Brock in Louisville, Kentucky. I know the Bengals have some amazing upside players on offense, he says. But do you think that their offensive line, which just lost 2 Pro Bowl players and is ranked 31st on Pro Football Focus, do you believe that will hold them back?
Yes and no is the answer. There are
someone else is perspiring.
No, I mean, the reality is, will a better offensive line make them better? Sure. So in that sense, you could say they hold them back. But you want to know the only team that, according to every major offensive line chart, is worse than the 31st ranked, and they're 32nd everywhere you check, that's the Seattle Seahawks. And I think you're fine with those options, right? Russell Wilson will be a top option. Doug Baldwin will be a top option. Jimmy Graham will be great. You can have a bad offensive line and still have a good offense. It's been done before. I don't worry with the weapons that the Bengals have. I'm not scared of Andy Dalton, AJ Green. I like all the options there. The running back core right now is a little murky because of where you're having to draft Joe Mixon and the possible involvement of Jeremy Hill, and the offensive line I think affects them a little bit more. I'm not too worried though.
Little shout out here to the Joe Mixon lovers. Man, I just want to be all in on Joe Mixon. I really do. I want to be. You have the head coach coming out yesterday and talking Joe Mixon up again. And I think we see so much potential from these skill players on that offense. I want to be all in because I think if they just gave him the work, it's going to be lights on, man.
Lights on.
Lights on.
It's going to be great. It's going to be go time.
And so I just looked up because I feel like I remember Andy Dalton historically being solid. Again, when he's facing pressure, he's a cool cat, and he gets it done. And last year he was actually quite bad. When he was under pressure. Looking, and this is another Pro Football Focus thing. They have him 23rd in passer rating when facing pressure. So it
gives you some pause.
It gives me a little bit of pause, but I'm not overthinking
Tough
it when it
division.
comes to the Bengals because AJ Green is great. He's elite. He will get it done, and Dalton's going to be a late round quarterback. I'm not even considering John Ross as a fantasy asset. Tyler Eifert he's a touchdown machine. That's what he does. So I don't know. The recipe doesn't concern me with their offensive line in this particular situation.
All right, let's jump into another voicemail question.
Hey, it's Matt from Wayne. Quick question. If you could choose one player that has the most bust potential, who would you choose? Thanks, you guys are beasts.
I already know Mike's answer. It's Martavis Bryant.
The most bust potential?
Oh, he said bust?
Yeah.
How funny. I heard plus.
Oh.
As in, like, the highest upside player in the draft.
Well, then we can answer both because the plus answer is Martavis Bryant.
Oh. And the bust answer might be Martavis Bryant?
Well, we'll see.
No, because
we'll see where he goes.
Not
you got to
because
factor
of his
draft
value.
position.
Yeah. So, most bust potential.
I mean, are you going to stick with Melvin Gordon?
I'm going to stick with that unless I can find someone else while you're talking.
Yeah, Melvin Gordon was who I said in the first round would be my number one. So if I'm going to name someone else out there that I think could have a real big bust on people, I'm going to go Todd Gurley, and I'm going to say that based on what I saw on film last year. I realize his offensive line was bad. I know they're moving him around more, but you're dealing with a guy who caught 40 passes last year. Is like, maybe he'll be more involved in the passing game this year. That's like one of the narratives. Well, what is he going to get 60 catches?
What if he's
40
the
catches
same? What if
year.
he's the same? I mean, his draft value is so different than it was last year. What if he's just the same? He's still a 17th ranked guy at a different draft value. But I feel this like internal compulsion to defend Todd Gurley, so I'll just be quiet now.
But he didn't give you ceiling last year. That's the problem.
He gave you 278 attempts.
No, I understand, and if you are getting him in the back of the second, he's probably going to return value for you. But unless he starts giving you those big games like he did his rookie year, it's still going to feel bad. And the other name I'll throw out as high bust potential because he just keeps moving up and up and up, and that's Marshawn Lynch.
Sure. I'm going to go with a different name, Jameis Winston. I think the narrative,
there's a lot
the
of
narrative
hype on
and the
him,
weapons around him make everybody think this is just an automatic ascension for him. I think you could see the same or worse performance. The interceptions are a problem. And I think you saw last year, Dirk Cutter made a conscious decision towards the second half of the year to establish the run game. Those are the games that you had Jaquiz Rodgers have success in. I think that recipe translated to victories, put him in a playoff push position. They may not try to put as much on the back of Jameis Winston as we saw last year, which could result in a lower than expected fantasy performance. All right.
Your upside? Got your upside guy there, Andy? Because I'm going to throw out
your plus.
Are we doing a plus as well?
Yeah, might as well.
You got to balance it out.
I'm going to say Amari Cooper for my plus because we haven't talked about that much. I believe that when Amari Cooper's career is over and you look back at his career, he'll have a year or two where he's got 10 touchdowns. Right now it hasn't happened yet, but some of that was, a little bit fluky, wasn't targeted in the red zone, also had 4 pass interference calls in the paint. And so that's going to make all the difference. Touchdowns are hard to predict, and right now the reason he's low are touchdowns. If he ends up with 10, his upside is tremendous.
Yeah, it's funny. I'll put my plus side guy as Marshawn Lynch. 6th best team in terms of points scored last year in Oakland. He heads into Oakland. You saw what a guy like LeGarrette Blount did. 18 touchdowns on one of the higher scoring offenses. If Marshawn Lynch gave you 15 touchdowns, it's not outside the realm of possibility. So I'll go with Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
It goes both directions.
Yes.
Yeah,
with
he's
Marshawn.
volatile.
No doubt about it. All right, this one comes from a YouTube comment. Katie Girl 17 says, "Love the show. Do bye weeks enter into your draft strategy at all?"
Depends on the format. So what I mean by that is if I'm doing a best ball format like we'll talk about here in a little bit on Play Draft, then absolutely bye weeks are extremely important. I'm not making the choice as to – I don't have any roster moves after the draft. So I need to know in week 9 that I've got enough good people to make a roster. And also when you've got really deep starting rosters. So like Scott Fish, you're starting 3 flex, 3 wide receivers. So you've got to make sure, once you get into the 14th through 20-something round, then you start looking at bye weeks. But in the average casual, home league, I don't really care at all.
Let me give you a hypothetical situation. You're looking at a draft that has unfolded in this way. You've got, Julio, got Demaryius Thomas. You ended up with Drew Brees and Jamison Crowder. So that's 4 of your top 7 round picks or so.
Sure.
Those guys all have a week 5 bye.
That's yuck. That's no good.
So, I mean, I would say the only way it impacts me is if I have a lot of players with an early bye week. That's when I would maybe
Before
consider,
your team is turned over?
Right, where I'll consider diversifying that at the draft. If I have a bunch of guys of a week 9, I'm not worrying about it because there will be so much roster turnover by week 9.
Yeah, and I think you added, you said that through 4 picks, you're kind of seeing the lay of the land with your bye weeks, and then you're making decisions based on that. So I think that's good advice. All right, before we move on to the next question, I want to thank today's sponsor. We've been talking about them for a long time, SeatGeek. Look, buying tickets, we all know this. It can be complicated. It can be confusing, but there is a simpler way to buy tickets, and that is with SeatGeek. It's the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to your favorite team's games. I have it on my phone. It's by far the easiest way that I've ever bought tickets. Very intuitive, very smart app. Just a couple of taps, and you got tickets. My wife and I, we were in New York about a month ago. Wanted to see a show. Didn't have tickets for it yet. We're sitting at dinner. I pulled out the app. 2 seconds later, I had tickets for the show. It was easy as pie, and they're all guaranteed. So I didn't have to worry that I was buying some illegitimate ticket off the street. They make it super easy. And obviously with the NFL season coming up, if you want to improv a game, if you want to take somebody to a game, it's great. So best of all, this is the best of all part.
The best.
$20 off your first SeatGeek purchase with our code. So download the SeatGeek app, enter the promo code Footballers today. That's the promo code Footballers for $20 off your very first SeatGeek purchase. Pretty sweet. All right.
Question.
Yeah.
I think we need to officially change the phrase easy as pie to easy as eating pie.
Really?
Why?
Have you ever baked a pie?
Not easy.
I bought a pie. It's super easy. You just go to the local Village Inn and you say, "I'd like a banana cream," and it's like, "Wow, that was easy as pie."
Banana cream pie.
Yeah. Why? Where do you think that phrase came from?
I have no idea. Someone who has never baked a pie in their life.
Because I can't imagine
Well, the phrase isn't easy as baking a pie.
But I
it's
can't
easy as
imagine it
pie.
was actually meant as easy as eating pie. Do you?
No, I don't think so.
Brooks?
We
Our
got
resident pie expert.
Brooks, do you know? Oh, he's holding
Giamatti
up the Paul
is here.
Giamatti face. Is that your way of saying you don't know an answer to this?
Yep.
Foot Clan, explain the pie
We
reference.
need to understand. This is important. This is more important than Keeper League strategy, but I guess we'll answer this question.
Life questions.
Ben in Cleveland. Hey, footballers. This season, my home league is switching from a redraft format to a 3-keeper league. How much should this affect my strategy in the first 3 rounds? And the value of players like Amari Cooper and Jordy Nelson. Great question. His league's a full-point PPR league. Ben, we've said it before, and I'll say it again. A league with only 3 keepers, it shouldn't really change your equation very much. It's nice to have a player like David Johnson that you think, hey, this player's going to be a 3-4 year star in the league. But even that is not a guarantee. We saw years ago Eddie Lacy look like that bona fide guaranteed early keeper league pick. It didn't pan out. So the way we approach this is most often we take a look, we try to draft players that are going to help us win this year. And we realize the fact that you'll have opportunities to make trades, to make adjustments. That's my approach, at least. It doesn't mean you don't pay attention to youth. It just means that most of the time I'm looking to win this year. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, youth does not matter much to me, but what does change, because we always say I take a 3 and under keeper league to basically be a redraft, but that's not entirely true in the sense that the top elite guys, the Le'Veon Bells, David Johnsons, Zeke, Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham, and Julio, those guys to me are worth a ton. So in the draft, not much you can do unless you have one of those top 6 picks. Try to trade up. I am willing to trade up to get one of those guys. But that's it. Outside of that, I don't care about Amari Cooper, in his age being younger, and maybe he'll have more longevity. It's just the absolute elite because you get to keep them every year. And if
Rob
you look at the
Gronkowski
playoffs,
count in that group because you have a positional advantage for multiple years?
I think you also need to discuss, like, are you reaching on guys like Joe Mixon? You said you want to be all in on him. Can't do it this year. I would imagine next year you will be. Your whole entire house have turned the lights on for Joe Mixon next year. So are you willing to reach for him around to ensure that he's on your team and you can keep him for a 4th or a 3rd next year? I mean, you're gambling.
It's tough making those commitments in a 3-keeper league and then saying, well, I reached on Joe Mixon, so now am I not trading Joe Mixon?
That's what I would.
When he doesn't pan out, am I committed to starting him?
I would give the advice to not do that. I would say do not overreach around earlier on a guy that could be just because he's young. That's my personal advice, because you need to win the championship this year. In a 3-keeper league, every single year you're in it at this time of the year, every single one. I mean, it doesn't matter who your keepers are. There's enough turnover on everyone's roster where you are a championship contender if you do the right things in this year's draft.
If you play to win, by the end of the year, 3 keepers will reveal themselves to you.
Yeah.
Nobody drafted Jordan Howard. He's an absolute keeper, and there's players like that every single year that
some people dropped him in the middle of the year.
And some people had LaShawn McCoy last year, so they were carrying Mike Gillislee into the playoffs because we want to have that handcuff situation, and now you have a running back 1 for free.
Yeah, some people named Mike. All right, Jacob in Loganville, Georgia says, I'm wanting to get a quick word about Austin Hooper. To me, he is a very under-the-radar tight end pick. Obviously, I'm a big fan because you can do the
Hanging with Mr. Hooper?
Hanging with Mr. Hooper. It's a good point. We talk often about rookie tight ends not being able to make big contributions. Austin Hooper last year only had 19 receptions, but we've seen Matt Ryan lean on tight ends. He's tried to make Toilolo relevant. Toilolo has said, no, I will not be relevant.
And as stupid as it sounds, those 19 receptions, if you watch them, they were pretty nice. He looked good.
You saw him in the Super Bowl. I think they went to him back-to-back plays in the end zone, and one of those was an amazing touchdown reception. Austin Hooper is a very intriguing player to me. I don't know if it's going to happen for him this year, and I'm not calling for it to happen this year, but eventually it's going to be great.
I'm very comfortable with him at 21. That's
sure,
where
yeah, he's our consensus 21 as well. I've got him a little higher at 17. Mike, you've got him at 28, which is fine.
26.
Oh, sorry.
I am much more intrigued with seeing what Austin Hooper does this year than I am Hunter Henry when you're talking about second-year tight ends. And that might be blasphemous for some people, but I think that there is a very high ceiling for Austin Hooper.
But you wouldn't draft him in a redraft league.
That's what I'm saying. It's not
He's
this
a guy
year
that you
for
just
me.
watch, and if he starts, being involved in the first couple weeks, spend your fab.
All right, Tyler in Boylan says, hey, guys, just wondering what your opinion is on the value of taking Isaiah Crowell at 402. In most of my mocks on ESPN, I end up with Melvin Gordon and then T.Y. Michael Thomas, if that affects your thought process at all. But what do you think of the value of Isaiah Crowell at the in the 4th round.
It's delicious.
I'm much more comfortable with Crowell there than where he's been ending up. I've seen him, in the back of the 2nd.
He will be in the back of the 2nd.
And he was in consideration earlier for who's going to bust. Isaiah Crowell, to me, if he's going in the 2nd round, if that's like where he ends up in August, then he will be one of my higher bust candidates.
You're just trying to hurt me?
I'm just saying he's not worth that value. He's still
I'm pretty
the
sure
Browns
Todd Gurley
running back.
and Isaiah Crowell, who I actively sought out in our Dynasty League, are my starting 2 running backs. And you are trying to hurt me.
It's funny because if you ask me what is Crowell's comp, it's Gurley. I mean, he's a running back who clearly has talent, but he's on a really bad team. They're going to be in negative game scripts frequently. And last year, Isaiah Crowell was among the leaders at the position of his production came through huge chunks, a la Todd Gurley his rookie year.
Yeah.
Which you
I have
saw
the
the regression last year.
I have the same concerns with any hype surrounding Joe Williams. Where, let's say that all the pieces fall into place in San Francisco. What does that mean? Because Joe Williams can be everything, but what offensive performances are we going to see from San Francisco this year? How many touchdown opportunities are you going to get? Are you going to get a player that everything goes right and he still only averages 85 yards a game and scores 3 times? Something like that. So, Mike, I'm tossing this question to you.
Ooh,
All
I'm
right.
open.
At BKG Hogs.
Hogs?
Yeah. Given the
right.
news on Andrew Luck or lack of news, how concerned should we be? And in Dynasty Leagues, should we consider selling high?
Woo!
That sounds scary.
Dynasty Leagues, absolutely not. And my radar it's starting to ping a little bit. I had heard some whispers in the bushes, reports that Andrew Luck was doing a little bit of just playing catch, essentially. But
It's good for a quarterback.
Well, but he's not out there. He's not going to be a full participant in training camp. And so at this point, not concerned because I think Andrew Luck has enough experience under the belt that he can jump in essentially week 1 and be good to go. It sucks for guys like Moncrief and Kamar Aiken and Dorsett, guys who are trying to get
Build
that
rapport.
chemistry and the rapport going with him. But I'm not concerned on this day. This Saturday, I'm not overly concerned with Andrew Luck yet.
All right, we're going to transition now, get into a new segment we're bringing every Saturday during the off season. Once a week, we're talking best ball.
Best Ball Bonanza, brought to you by Redraft.
All right, if you don't know what best ball is, you are drafting right now at playdraft.com/ballers. It is a league in which all you do is draft. You draft your roster right now. There are 18 players on your roster, and what it does is it selects the best performance at each position every week, and that's the points you get. So you try to construct a roster that gives you the opportunity to score the most points each week, having depth at each position. And so we talk philosophy there. Mike, you're looking at me.
Have we told our friend Paul about best ball?
He would like that.
Because Paul is one of the fantasy football players who gets incredibly frustrated when
it doesn't go according to script.
Yeah,
You don't get what you expect.
and making your roster decisions on a weekly basis. I mean, and you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
With best ball, the computer does
I
it
bet
for
Paul would love best ball. At least he would
Paul
feel
loves best ball.
in control of his own ship and destiny. So if you are playing, we wanted to let you know about a couple cool things. One, we're all about best ball. We love best ball. It's been so fun this off season. Mike and one of us on a weekly basis are doing a live best ball draft, and you can get access to that really easy on our Periscope and on Twitter at the FF Ballers. You'll see that pop up. You can go watch the one that Mike did last week.
So you can watch, you can join in the conversation, and you can join in the league. People are asking, how do we get in a league, a best ball league with you guys? It's essentially I'll announce it the morning of on Twitter, and I'll say, hey, around this time, be watching for a link. And then the people who are clicking on the link and get in, you're in, and we're going to draft.
And then once a week when we do these segments, brief segment, we're going to talk about some best ball strategy and ideas. Jason got into some last week. I've got a tip for players today who are playing best ball. And I think this is even more appropriate because, look, you use the Play Draft app on your phone. And so a little bit of a smaller real estate than maybe you're used to drafting on a computer. One of the things that happens when people do drafts like an ESPN for redraft leagues is you get caught up at times with the list of players that ESPN has set in front of you. And so you can be in the middle of a draft, and they're obviously recommending players based on their recommended list. And it can get very tempting to just take the highest player on the list so you don't make a mistake.
Or only consider, 3 of the names that are in the top 6 in that list. Whatever list they're giving you, it's like, oh, well, I like this guy best of these 5.
Yeah, so I want to remind players on draft playing best ball, don't fall into that trap in the best ball app where you're only looking or considering, I think that's the bigger point, that you're only considering the top 5 or 6 names that are recommended at each position. A good example of that is a player like Martavis Bryant. He's very far down the list because he's not necessarily climbing into everybody's top rankings. You can do a couple scrolls down, all of a sudden Martavis Bryant pops in there. Maybe you want to take a guy like Martavis Bryant in a best ball league over a guy like Golden Tate.
Pro tip, if you're in my live draft,
don't do that.
And it's pro tip, don't do that. No, if you're in the 4th round and you want Martavis Bryant, you better take him because he's an automatic 4th-round pick for me.
In all your best ball leagues?
Yes.
So just pay attention to the fact that, look, don't fall into that trap. Build your own rankings inside the app if you need to.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You can, in that app, make your own rankings to make sure you're not falling into just the ADP trap.
Yeah, so Mike's doing another one this week. Well, one of us is going to sit in on it with him as well, and we'll talk more best ball strategy. We'll be putting a few more articles and things like that up on best ball strategy because we love best ball. We think it's a great exercise even in helping your redraft league because we always say mock drafting helps you understand player value. Well, playing best ball leagues help you understand player value too, and
this
it's just
is the
super
best
fun.
version of there's a little change because you might overvalue those boom bust guys. Like, for instance, Brandon Cook's great pick in best ball, even though I don't want him in redraft. But you're drafting not against a bot. You're drafting against other real people really trying to make the best decisions. Great prep for your regular league.
Also, for players who are new to the format, should make sure you mention Play Draft offers 2 different ways of drafting.
Yes.
They offer a fast draft where everyone gets 30 seconds, and it's
a blast.
It's a blast. It's intense. I mean, it is a pressure cooker when all of a sudden you're on the clock. You have 30 seconds to make this pick. They also offer the slow draft where everyone gets essentially up to 8 hours, and these drafts can usually take a week or 2 weeks.
I love Michael Keaton.
Just so there's the casual. Oh, I'm on the clock. I'll take my time here, make a pick, and then there's I'm going to sit down for 30 minutes and have a good time.
Awesome. Well, we'll be back on Tuesday next week with another show. Very excited about some new features coming out for the Ultimate Draft Kit, most likely released early next week.
We're looking at Jason.
That's the pressure being put on.
So,
maybe late next
don't
week.
miss it.
But it's coming. It's coming
Yeah,
soon.
check all of the things that are included in the Ultimate Draft Kit out at ultimatedraftkit.com. Super excited about what we built there and think it'll help you dominate your 2017 draft. Again, go to playdraft.com/ballers if you want to get in one of those other leagues with us. Hope you enjoyed the mailbag, and we will catch you on Tuesday. Have a good one, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.